Bismillahirrahmanirrahim ta'ala wabarakatuh. And very good evening for all the participants of Knowledge and Culture Expedition in Osaka. And my beloved colleague from UKM, Professor Dr. Abdul Ghafar, Professor Dr. Ismail, and Tuan Haji Zulkarnain, President of Japan Dakwah Center. Last and not least, all the participants of this what we call workshop for this event. My topic is Dakwah communication for foreigners, and I was given this topic for in order to complete this module for professional preachers, particularly to Japan Dakwah Center, Osaka, Japan. And hopefully, I hope my presentation today is not the class of communication, rather than sharing session how preachers or da'i can communicate to the mad'u or target group, especially for the preachers of the Japanese Dakwah Center. As introduction, in my presentation, I start the statement, one can not communicate, meaning that everybody can communicate to everybody, and even you didn't say anything, actually you communicate with others. Like for example, you keep silent, or even you sleep at this workshop, actually you send the message to others. This is why I start my presentation with very clear statement, one cannot not communicate. In the context of Dakwah, I will say that the process of Dakwah takes place when the da'i or preacher communicates with mad'u in order to convey, in order to share the message of da'wah. And actually, da'wah is not limited to verbal communication, but also it involves non-verbal communication. For example, in the context of verbal communication, it happens when the preacher or da'i using a specific language, like for instance, Tuan Haji Zul communicate with Japanese, with Japanese language, and we Malay people, of course, when we talk to our mad'u, we will use Malay language in order to convey the message of dawah to our mad'u. So when we speak, when we touch about this verbal communication, da'i or preacher will use a specific language in order to convey the message of da'wah to the subject or mad'u through verbal medium such as public speaking or sermon or khutbah or dialogue, or even as well as discussion. This is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala remind us in Surah Ibrahim, chapter 4, وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَا مِنْ رَسُولٍ إِلَّا بِلِسَانِ قَوْمِهِ لِنُبَيِّنَ لَهُمْ. We did not send any messenger or Rasul, but speaking in the language of his people, so that they might clearly convey the message to them. Brothers and sisters in Islam, uh, uh, I will share the meaning of da'wah briefly. The word da'wah originates from Arabic language. That's mean call and invitation. And in the perspective of etymological, da'wah means to call or to invite people to one objective or matter. And there are some Muslim scholars who try to define what dawah is. Like for example, Sheikh Abdul Karim Zaidan, who wrote in his famous work in da'wah, namely Usul Da'wah, he defined da'wah as the call to Allah Almighty. Muhammad Al-Ghazali, meanwhile, defined da'wah as a comprehensive program which consists of all required knowledge. In its fold, the people are in need of them, so they understand the purpose of their life and discover the milestones that make them guided human beings. And the last, not least, Al-Bayanuni, for example, defined da'wah as the work of da'wah is focused on calling others in the religion. Of course, religion in this context is Islam, worship Allah, and offering love to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is basic pillars of da'wah. I'm not going to elaborate this matter because Professor Dr. Adawiyah had shared their views about these fields of da'wah. And the next slide is about the essence of da'wah. There is Allah words in Surah An-Nahl, chapter 1 to 5. Ud'u ila sabili rabbika bil hikmah wal mau'izil hasanah wajadilhum billati hiya ahsan. And that's mean Allah say, invite all the way of your Lord with wisdom and kind advice, and only debate with them in the best manner. Brothers and sisters in Islam, now I will share the view of da'wah communication. This is the essence of this presentation. And what is the meaning of communication? Basically, communication is the act of giving, receiving. The next slide. Communication is the act of giving, receiving, and sharing information. And in other words, talking or writing, even listening or reading, verbally or non-verbal, is considered as communication. And communication involves the process of meaningful interaction among human beings. So if we talk about da'wah communication, we refer to the communication process that takes place, involves the dissemination of information related to Islam in order to influence mad'u, so that they will understand the message, they will accept the faith of Islam, having the knowledge and practicing the teaching of Islam, and dismiss it and defend the truth of the teachings. All these matters must use communication principles and methods as outlined in the Quran, the Hadith, as well as new methods which is not against the Sharia. So for the next presentation, the next slide, and I will say that Dakwah communication is also planned and aimed at conveying messages that are sourced from or under the teaching of the Quran and the Sunnah, with the aim that other people can do righteous deeds according to the messages conveyed, and to seek happiness in life based on the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So as far as Da'i is concerned, Da'i as a communicator in a group communication, he or she or they must have communication skills, not only looking at dawah in the frame, telling the good and preventing evil, but Da'i must be able to have skills in communication. I will share with you one of the elements skill of Dakwah communication, that is persuasive communication. All kinds of communication are persuasive in nature, and that's why it is impossible to influence people without communication or without communicating with others. And persuasive communication involves first convincing people in order to make tendencies towards a particular subject which takes place by a certain activity. Secondly, a communication activity with goal is to influence the receiver of message. And the third, the sender of message invites people to an ideological stand or to specific behavior by manipulation of cognition, meaning that information design and emotional excitement, that is feeling, and the last one involve behavior display to influence them. Of course, da'wah is a kind of persuasive communication, meaning that the goal of da'wah is to influence people and to change people's values, people's attitude and behavior in accordance with Islamic rules and regulation. Therefore, the preachers should have the strategy to make persuasive method, especially in terms of good personality, appropriate message to be conveyed, and suitable performance in accordance with the psychological and of receiver, that is target group of da'wah. And in terms of religious aspect of persuasion in communication, of course, associated with the field of psychology, meaning that when people communicate with others using persuasive communication, Muslim preachers or da'i must start communicate to the receivers or da'i. They will receive a message by thinking about the truth of message, and eventually may give positive feedback on the message and practice it voluntarily. There is no compulsion to the mad'u to accept Islam. And when, as for example, I'm a preacher or I'm a da'i, when I convey the message of Islam, or am I send the message or share the message of Islam, like for instance, Tawheed, faith, whatever, the teaching of Islam, and the receiver or the mad'u will listen what I'm talking about. Right? and they try to understand the message I have sent to them. And finally, when he or she or they give the positive feedback on the message, and inshallah, they will accept Islam without any compulsion. This is the I think the main target of the important part of dakwah persuasive communication. The next slide, I will share about the what they call qawaid ad-da'wah, khatibun nas ala qadri uqulihim, which is in accordance with the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. What is the meaning of khatibun nas ala qadri uqulihim? Address people according to the intelligence. When we send the message or we share the message of da'wah, we have to address them in accordance to their intelligence. First. Secondly, we have to address people in the language they can understand. And the third one, we have to address people according to the understandable message within the context of the discussion. This is, I think, the main elements of persuasive communication. And the next one is the persuasive communication techniques. There is 6, of course, there are many techniques of persuasive communication that we can apply in the da'wah communication. First, we have to know our mad'u. In terms of their needs, their values, and their desires. Secondly, we have to grab their attention. Addressing the audience, the introductory phase is very, very essential. That's why when we are here in Japan, we have to address them with Japanese language, very basic addressing to them. Like for instance, konnichiwa, hayo, watashi, and so on and so forth. Okay. The third one is we have to establish our authority and our credibility in terms of knowledge. Of course, if we choose to be a da'i, we have to establish our authority, our knowledge, and our credibility. And Alhamdulillah, now you are in the 3rd year and 4th year in your studies, and you have to increase your knowledge in da'wah. You have to increase your knowledge in Islam, so that if you go to da'wah field, people will look at you. How do you address Islam according to your knowledge? And I hope you can understand my message. And of course, there is different level of knowledge of first year student and between 4th year student. Understand? Yes. Okay. Thank you. Number 4, we have to choose a suitable communication medium in terms of our content. So in order to convey, in order to influence people in the context of persuasive communication, we have to choose what is the suitable content to our mad'u. If we do dakwah to Aboriginal peoples or orang asli, for example, so we have to choose what is the suitable content for them. And of course, when we go to dakwah to the Japanese people, what is the suitable content for them? And secondly, if we choose what we call suitable methodology to convey the message, like for instance, we go to them face to face, and we try to influence them face to face. It is different when we choose the what we call new media to convey the message to them. And the fifth one is we have to use our body language in order to influence them. Like, for example, eye contact. When we speak to others, we have to look at their face. And we have to utilize all the hand gesture and our posture. Because in our body language, all these try to give some meanings to them. If we try to convey them and we don't look at their face, or we don't use any hand gesture and posture, so the meaning of the message, I think, is meaningless. It's meaningless. Yeah? And the last, we have to be an active listener. Yeah? This is very important in order to understand their viewpoint on topic. And we have to show our passion and respect to them. I think there are many techniques for persuasive communication. And I think the last one is Al-Quran. The Holy Quran guide us, or give us some what they call guidelines, and give us some indicators how Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala teach us the persuasive communication is very important. That's why Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala use some sort of word qawl, and word qawl, which are paired with another words in order to express the differences of context and objectives. Like, for example, Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala use qawlan layyina, words that are gentle. We can study at the Surah Taha, chapter 43 and 44. And qawlan baligha, for example, words that touch the soul. In Surah An-Nisa, chapter 63, qawlan maysura, words that easily understood. In Surah Al-Isra, chapter 28, and qawlan karima, word of honor, in the Surah Al-Isra, chapter 33. I think this is my presentation today. I hope you understand what I'm talking about, and I think we can apply one or two techniques that I share with you this evening. And thank you, and wassalam, salam alaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh.
Okay, baiklah. Alhamdulillah. Terima kasih diucapkan kepada Dr. Zulkefli Aini atas pembentangan beliau. Okay, majlis diteruskan dengan menjemput Profesor Dr. Abdul Ghafar dengan tajuk pembentangannya dakwah and preaching dakwah in the context of Japanese society. Majlis diteruskan.